Imagine standing in a narrow mountain pass, rocks crashing down from above, arrows raining from the trees, and the most powerful knights in Europe suddenly realizing they've walked straight into a trap. These weren't trained royal armies waiting for them. They were farmers. In 1315, a group of Swiss peasants armed with farming tools and simple weapons defeated one of the most feared military forces in Europe, the heavily armored knights of the Habsburg Empire. And what happened in that mountain pass didn't just win a battle, it helped create Switzerland itself. But the real story is even more shocking. Because the Swiss didn't win with strength. They won with something far more dangerous. In the early 1300s, the Habsburg dynasty was one of the most powerful families in Europe. They controlled huge territories and believed the Alpine regions of central Switzerland belonged under their rule. But the people living in the valleys of Ui, Schwyz, and Unterwalden had other ideas. These were mountain communities, farmers, hunters, and traders who were used to surviving harsh winters and dangerous terrain. They valued independence more than anything. When the Habsburg rulers tried to tighten their grip with taxes, laws, and governors, the local communities quietly formed an alliance. It was called the Old Swiss Confederacy. At first, it was just a promise between neighbors: if one valley was attacked, the others would help defend it. But the Habsburgs didn't take this seriously. To them, rebellious peasants were nothing compared to armored knights. That arrogance would soon cost them dearly. In 1315, Duke Leopold I of Austria decided it was time to end the Swiss resistance once and for all. His plan seemed simple. Send a powerful army of mounted knights and infantry into the region of Schwyz, crush the rebels, and remind everyone who was in charge. The army was intimidating. Hundreds of heavily armored knights, the elite warriors of medieval Europe, supported by thousands of infantry. Against them stood the Swiss forces. Mostly farmers, blacksmiths, woodcutters, men with halberds, spears, and whatever weapons they could find. On paper, this should have been an easy victory for the Habsburg army. But the Swiss had one massive advantage. They knew the mountains. The Austrian army marched confidently toward the Morgarten Pass, a narrow route between a steep mountainside and a swampy lake. It looked like the fastest path into Swiss territory. But it was also a nightmare battlefield. The path was extremely narrow. Horses couldn't move freely. Large formations were impossible. And most importantly, the Swiss were already waiting. Hidden in the forests and rocky slopes above the road, the Swiss fighters prepared an ambush. They didn't plan to fight like traditional armies. They planned to create chaos. As the Austrian column entered the narrowest part of the pass early on the morning of November 1315, the trap was sprung. Swiss fighters rolled massive rocks and logs down the slope. The front of the army suddenly collapsed into confusion. Knights in heavy armor struggled to control their horses. Soldiers behind them couldn't see what was happening ahead. Then the Swiss charged. Not with swords from horseback, but with long halberds and spears designed to pull knights off their horses. Once a knight fell into the mud or swampy ground near Lake Jerry, his heavy armor became a deadly burden. He couldn't stand up easily. And the Swiss fighters swarmed. Medieval knights were built for open battlefields. Their armor made them nearly unstoppable in a traditional charge across flat land. But Morgarten wasn't a battlefield. It was a bottleneck. The narrow terrain prevented cavalry from building speed. Horses slipped and collided. Armor that usually protected knights now slowed them down. Meanwhile, the Swiss infantry fought in tight groups with long pole weapons. Think of it like trying to swing a sword inside a crowded elevator while someone else has a long spear. The knights never had a chance to organize. Once the front of the Austrian column collapsed, panic spread through the ranks. Soldiers in the back couldn't see the ambush but could hear screams and crashing horses ahead. The narrow path turned retreat into chaos. Some knights tried to escape into the swamp near the lake. Others were pushed off the road by the mass of soldiers behind them. The Swiss fighters kept attacking from above and from the sides. Within a short time, what had started as a confident military campaign turned into a disastrous rout. The powerful Habsburg army was shattered by a force of local fighters. The Battle of Morgarten quickly became legendary. For the Swiss, it proved something powerful: unity and strategy could defeat even the most elite armies. This victory strengthened the alliance between the Swiss cantons. More regions joined the Confederacy, and the idea of Swiss independence grew stronger. Over time, the Swiss developed a reputation across Europe for their disciplined infantry and deadly pike formations. Ironically, the same kinds of foot soldiers once dismissed as peasants would later become the most feared mercenaries in Europe. All because of one mountain ambush. The battle also revealed a major shift happening in medieval warfare. For centuries, knights had dominated European battlefields. Heavy cavalry was considered unbeatable. But Morgarten showed that disciplined infantry, fighting smart and using terrain, could defeat mounted elites. This lesson would appear again and again in later battles across Europe. Armies slowly began to rely less on noble knights and more on organized infantry formations. In other words, Morgarten was more than a local victory. It was an early sign that the age of the knight was beginning to fade. Today, the Morgarten Pass is peaceful. Forests cover the slopes, and travelers can walk the same path where knights once rode confidently into disaster. But in 1315, that narrow mountain road helped change history. A group of farmers stood against one of Europe's most powerful dynasties and won. Their victory didn't just protect their homes. It helped lay the foundation for the independent Switzerland we know today. And it proved a timeless lesson. Sometimes the strongest army isn't the one with the best armor. It's the one that understands the battlefield. History is full of moments where the underdog changes everything, and Morgarten is one of the greatest examples. A handful of determined mountain fighters defeated an empire and sparked the rise of a nation. If you enjoyed this story of legendary battles and unexpected victories, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more incredible moments from history you won't hear in textbooks.